Welcome to Window Shop with Car and Driver. This is the weekly show where Car and Driver contributors, editors, and guests gather to look at cars on the internet based on a challenge. This week's challenge was actually sent to us by a reader or a viewer. It's another viewer challenge, and we decided to do it. It's to find a car that you grew up in, a car that your family or your parents owned that sort of struck a chord with you, maybe, or maybe not, maybe good or for bad. This week we're joined by contributor John Pearly Huffman, senior editor Joey Caparella, contributing editor Jonathan Ramsey, and deputy testing director Casey Colwell. And Jonathan, you've got an announcement of some sort to make that we don't know about.
So to the reader who sent this in, what this trip down memory lane has inspired me, because the Buick is going to be going away now the winter's over. So I'm going to buy something we discussed today to replace the Buick.
Oh, is it a car you pick or is it part?
No, just what something we discussed today. I don't know what it is because I don't know what we'll discuss. Something we discussed today, I'm gonna buy.
So this challenge is that much more important.
Hey, Jonathan, instead of doing that, would you like to pay for my son's tuition?
We'll talk about that after the show.
Okay.
I'm sure we can find something for you to do.
All right, Pearly, you want to kick it off to see what car you grew up in?
I do. Well, you know, we all go through a lot of cars when we grow up in, because obviously we don't have any control over it. It's something that our parents control. And I just want to start off by sharing this. Let's see if I remember how to share a screen here. No, that was the wrong thing to do.
Pearly, the stuff you look at outside of cars is wild.
It's the stuff that comes up.
Of course it does.
Yeah, you see this is what my dad drove. I'm sorry.
A Beetle?
Yeah, he had a 57 Beetle, small window.
That's awesome.
That was the first car I remember. I couldn't find anything anywhere near close to the price point with a 57.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, right.
So I couldn't
we had a 20 grand price cap.
Right. And then my mom brought a 56 Chevy 150 into the marriage, actually through my grandmother. This is my grandmother's car. This is not her car, obviously, but this is close to it. Then my dad bought a Fintail 220 Mercedes, which I always loved because it had a thermometer in it. Then my grandmother turned in her 56 Chevy and bought this, which is a 69 Fiat 124 Sport Coupe. Which
really, you're always calling people Rockefeller on here anytime someone mentions buying something more than a Kit Kat, and look at you. What is
Fiats?
this?
I own Fiats and Volkswagens.
Oh, come on.
And a Mercedes Fintail.
Right, but he bought it used. It was old. And then this is me driving the story I did about driving the same 71 Fiat that was just like my mom's.
That's so cool.
Which was really a lot of fun. It's a good story. I hope everybody goes reads it twice.
It's a great story.
But the first new car my family ever bought is this 1965 Ford Country Squire. I remember because we bought this, I was 3. And I remember this vividly we went to Ralph Williams Ford in Encino to test drive it because they didn't have any at Thompson Falsky Ford in Santa Barbara.
Go through the photos, Pearly.
No free ads.
Yeah. And
is the dealership still around?
Thompson Falsky's not. In fact, but I live a block away from where it was.
Oh, you live in Santa Barbara.
I would delete the license plate.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. But these cars have gone up way in value. This one is a really nice one. This is actually the same color that they want 18 for this. This is the same color as the one my dad had and my mom had. And after a while, we called it the Country Squad because the letters kept falling off.
What engine did you guys have?
We had the 352. This is 390.
Not a 4-valve. It is a
4-barrel.
4-barrel. Yeah.
4 Venturis. The V is for Venturis.
Yeah.
And here's the way back.
Wow.
I didn't know it was
sitting back there, Pearly. Do you remember sitting back there as a young boy?
I remember being banished back there. It's like what would happen was me and my brother would start fighting, and one of us would be banished to the back. At which point in time we'd start fighting over the seat. So,
like church pews.
These are, the thing is, the '65 Ford is one of my favorite looking cars of all time. It was basically the same chassis design essentially lasted through the end of production of the Crown Victoria in 2011. That's how good basically it was, a 46-year run.
Is there a listing for this?
That's all Zeta?
I thought it was Panther.
Or Panther,
Oh,
yeah.
Panther.
Panther.
this
The
all
Panther
Panther?
was the Panther is a different platform, but it's based on this platform. It's essentially they just scaled it down.
Well, yeah, it's a
And-
body on frame.
You're right. And all of the and the front suspension of this was basically under every Winston Cup stock car for about 30 years. The front suspension. The Holman Moody used this stub and used it as the basis for the chassis that became the standard Winston Cup chassis.
I love the shark nose front. It's cool.
And it's also the first time that they went for the real square cut jaw looking thing.
Take us through the listing, Pearly. What's
And I
this?
like that Aztec looking hood ornament with the Aztec headdress.
Well, this is he's available locally for $18,000. He says he won't take $16,000 for it. It says it only has 30,700 miles on it, which I find a little hard to believe.
How big are those wheels? Are those 17s?
I don't know, but I lose the wheels instantly. I'd
That's
want.
gonna put you way over budget.
No, I'm gonna go for 15-inch steel wheels with bi-ply tires. I'm gonna keep it down.
We'll sell these wheels too, probably.
Yeah, sell the wheels.
I'm kidding.
And wait,
But also, the thing is, I have a consultant who will help me find them, and that's Tony. So, I just think these are as part of my, my dad drove this car till God, like 1980.
Did you ever get to drive it, Pearly?
No, and I didn't want to. By the time I got my driver's license, this car was pretty disreputable. It was really.
it says 90% rust free. What do you think that 10% of rust is?
That's a good question. Now I found other ones that are listed here. I mean, here's one was a 352, and I couldn't get a price on it. And this is one that they painted it white, which I just despise the roof and the white walls. And then there's this perfect one.
There we go.
Really nice.
Wow.
Which is the thing is that this one has the wood's been the vinyl siding's been replaced by paint, so that's all paint
Wow.
for the wood.
That's a Tony Caroga interior right there.
The interior is spectacular. This is the reserve is not met at 21,000, and I don't think this is going to go for less than maybe 29.
Yeah, who knows what the reserve is?
And the reason is also because it's a 390 with a 2-barrel, which is pretty choked down. It sold at Barrett Jackson, the same car sold at Barrett Jackson in 2018 for 28.
Okay, so they probably want somewhere in that neighborhood.
Right, at least that. So I don't think we're going to get the same thing, but I'd want this car.
Oh, they swapped the steering wheel out, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I'd want this car.
That's cool.
But, yeah, or even better, or some of these. Then some of them, like this is a 66, and I hate the wheels. But the 66 is maybe a little bit better looking because they redesigned the side paneling, so it's a little bit more.
A little less straight edged. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a real insider thing about the paneling, because I wouldn't have known if you hadn't said something.
It's got that little kick in the door.
Yeah. They added. They stretched it out and gave it a little more thing. They're great looking cars.
Was it a reliable car for your parents?
What? Was
it a reliable car for your parents?
It was more reliable than their marriage.
How many?
Okay.
How many miles did they put on it in those 14 years?
The family put about 70,000 miles on it, and my dad put another 40,000 miles on it when he left.
Oh, okay. So there was like over 100,000 miles.
Yeah. So if you want to hear about my broken childhood, we can go into deep detail.
That's another show.
That's for a different show.
Yeah, but they're interesting cars because they're historically significant for both racing and for Ford. And I think they're good looking because they don't make anything that looks like it anymore.
So technically it was a Galaxy Country Squire. Is that what it was?
Galaxy. Remember, they didn't have the top of the line back then was the Galaxy. They didn't. This is I think the LTD came out in '66.
Right.
So the
yeah, I thought Galaxy would have been a better name for the Mustang Mach-E.
So do I. I think that, they had two names that were perfect for it. They could have used Futura or Galaxy.
Well, they lost the Futura name. The Fusion was going to be called the Futura, but they lost the trademark to that name to a tire company in like 2004.
Well,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Hey, wait, Pearly, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Pearly, you have the prettiest fingernails I have seen all year.
It's a long story.
That's for a different show.
Like, look at those nails.
Well, you're not going to see any more of them now because now I'm not going to lift up my hands above my desk.
Don't do that.
It keeps him from biting his nails.
Yeah, don't say that either, Pearly.
Thank you, Jonathan. What was your big announcement? Okay.
Thanks, Pearly.
Okay, thanks, guys. And thank you for
you're
making
up.
me feel self-conscious again.
So we're fast forwarding a couple decades here to Joey's family car.
Yeah. So I think the car that I chose probably explains a lot about my personality. And that's, for better.
That was almost a spit take.
Oh yeah.
So, okay, this was my dad's first car. And he got it, I think in his late 20s, and then kept it until well into my childhood, which tells you a lot about my dad. So
How old is your dad? How old is your
he
dad?
had a two-door hatchback in this lovely shade of whatever it is, blue, gray. But I'm pretty sure what he had was the same color. So the Tercel of this era, there are versions of it that are still cool today, the four-wheel drive wagon, but this is not that.
It's rear-wheel drive.
It was very, very hard to find one.
It's rear-wheel drive. Don't think it's
no. This is the first front-wheel drive generation.
Oh, that's a front driver?
Yeah, the generation just before this was the last rear-wheel drive.
Oh, okay.
But so my dad had never had a car before in his life until his late 20s. He bought a Tercel. I think he bought it new. It might have been used. I think his was an 85.
Wait, Joey, what did he do for the 10 years that he could have had a car and driven but didn't?
He biked everywhere. He was a cyclist, and he was committed to the bicycle.
Where did you grow up? Where did you grow up, Joey?
So he's from North Carolina. He bought this car, I think, when he moved to Nashville, which is where I was born and where I grew up.
So I can see, Joey, where your love of normcore cars comes from.
I mean, this might take it to
you're passionate about all cars. It's not.
This might take it to an extreme of normcore that even I can't get behind.
Did you ever drive that car?
I never drove this car. I think he got rid of it when I was maybe like 10 or something, or maybe even like 8 or 9.
I had a friend in high school who had an 85 or an 86 like this, Joey. They were slow.
So he had it for like 12, 13 years, I think. And I distinctly remember near the end of the car's life, it was making a weird noise in reverse, and we were trying to figure out what it was. And we called Car Talk, because like my dad was not into cars at all, but I was. And Car Talk was like the one thing that we would listen to that had anything to do with cars. But I mean, this story doesn't have a good ending because I don't think we got through. But
yeah, Tom and Ray. It was Tom and Ray, the brothers.
Yeah, we listened to that a lot.
This is just sorry.
I remember this car very well because like I just kind of accepted that like this is what cars were. Like crank windows, no AC, no nothing. And then even the cars my dad had after this were like similarly. So we had a Corolla wagon. We had a Corolla sedan, like a 2002 Corolla sedan that still had
a common thread
windows, no intermittent wipers, no nothing.
So wait a minute. Wait, Joey, this is your Clark Kent, and then you're hopping in the back of the Jaguar, what, XJ12?
Yeah, that was my classmate whose parents were like very into
But still,
cars.
that's what you were doing
Jaguar
every day. And this is what you thought cars were. You were like this.
I mean,
I
guess, yeah. At a certain point, I started realizing what other cars.
Okay.
So cars were either limousines or ox cars.
Yeah, nothing in between.
Joey, if you sat in that car, would you know, or do you remember what that car smells like?
I probably would remember. Like it would bring back memories. I'm sure. Although probably what it smells like today is worse.
Well, no. I mean back in the day. Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to say is that the first car my dad bought with power windows was in 2009. It was a Honda Fit, and he asked the salesperson if there was a version with crank windows.
I think you could get crank in the rear.
I know that. I remember the Neon having.
Yeah, I remember that. I was going to say the Neon had that.
Crank windows.
What does your dad drive now?
So now my dad drives a 2013 Nissan Altima base model. And he thinks it's like the most luxurious car he'll ever own.
Well, compared to this, it definitely is.
Yeah, it's all relative, right?
He's still working his way up the ladder.
Yeah. So who knows what will be next?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like
is that price decent?
Yeah. Okay. The price is truly unhinged, I think.
Okay.
It's a little high.
It's a little high. At first, I saw the 141. I was like, okay.
That's about what the car sold for new.
$7,000 is kind of wild.
This is like the car everybody in college drove if their dad gave them a car.
Yeah. This one only has 78,000 miles.
It's low mileage.
They're actually pretty good car. I mean, there's nothing interesting about them, but there's nothing wrong with them either.
Right. And going and going and going.
But I also think
like this one look clean.
This is one of the few cars of that era that still exists, as in like Escort, Cavalier. Oh, you can't find them anywhere.
Yeah.
They're all dead.
You can barely find these, and you really can't find those.
No, there's certain cars that disappear, and there's certain cars that last forever.
I did find this other one at a dealer, and then the dealer, they didn't have pictures, so I contacted them, and they sent me these pictures. I think it must have sold because the listing's not up. But
that one's dirty.
That one's a little rough. But this one only had 30,000 miles, which I'm kind of dubious of.
What did they want for that
but
one?
But they were sending me these pictures, and I was really searching, and they finally sent the pictures, and I was like, yes. And I was just imagining no one has ever reacted that way.
You pull up to any 7-Eleven in that car, and the clerk is going to duck under the counter to make sure he doesn't get shot.
Look at the pinstripe. I like how the pinstripe goes up the C pillar.
And I think that's a coach stripe, Tony.
Coach line.
Stripe.
I just found that listing yesterday, and by today it was gone. So clearly there's.
It's too bad I can't buy it. So
you can buy this one. This one looks like it's still available.
But you might buy that blue one. It is on a.
But I might buy that blue one if it survived the fire.
I think you're ending up in the Country Squire.
Just try to negotiate down to like 1/6 of the price.
Well, I remember when it was the Tercel that had a 50. Yeah, this is a Tercel. I remember the Tercel had a 50. It was the car that was still priced in the 50s. It was like $59.95.
Oh yeah.
And they had a big ad campaign.
Well, it's appreciated since then.
All right, Joey. Thank you.
Was that like Car Zing?
Yeah, I've never found a listing from there before.
That sounds like one of my dark websites.
Yeah, it sounds like somewhere you'd find a Lotus Esprit listing that I can tell you, if anybody, any returning viewers investigated, and that was basically a website for aggregating auctions. So that was the opening bid for an auction.
Oh, so it sold for around that, I guess.
No, I don't think it's sold yet. No.
I guess.
I have to.
You're talking about the V8 twin turbo version.
Yep.
All right, Jonathan, I think you're up next.
Okay, so I'm going to pull a bit of a Pearly now and have a miniature TED Talk because I need to explain how.
On the family?
Yeah, so see, like if you look at my background, like I'm not a hillbilly, but I'm hillbilly adjacent. So I had plenty in my family. There were always cars around. My two uncles had these. My dad had this Camaro. And then I was crazy until I was like 16, trucks. That's it. I never cared about cars, only trucks. Along those peaks.
Look at that wheelbase.
Truck, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, I spent 10 months driving a truck, and it was amazing. And I highly recommend it. So
I think the correct sentence structure is driving truck, not driving a truck.
Do you still have
let me tell you, no trucker has ever said correct sentence structure. So I don't know anything about that. So yeah, Pete's were my favorite, but Kenworth and this show, Pearly, I might remember.
BJ and the Bear.
BJ and the Bear.
Oh yeah.
Same year, came out same year as Dukes of Hazzard, only lasted 2 years. Dukes of Hazzard lasted 6, but I watched every episode of this. And then when it went off the air, I switched to Dukes of Hazzard.
Greg Evigan may be the least respected actor who deserves more praise.
So
that cab over truck was also the inspiration for Optimus Prime, which
boom, exactly
my youth wheelhouse.
Jonathan, how did you feel about the Snowman's GMC pickup or his Class 8?
Well, he had a KW to start. The first Snowman truck was a KW.
Exactly. Yeah. Any Convoy, Snowman, any trucking movie, truck. Yes, I'll take it. I don't care what it is. But I grew up with my mother, and she had and that was fantastic. My mother's amazing, but she had a different idea about what a guy should drive. So this was the first car I bought and owned. It was red. brand new, and I loved it. And I beat the snot out of that car, but it was amazing. So it was a 1989 Ford Festiva. What's amazing, speaking of cars that disappeared, this is the only listing.
$1,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's appreciated a little.
Yeah, clearly, this is the next big boom, the Tercels and the Festivas.
But,
No, internet, do not listen to Joey on this. He's wrong.
Go back
It
to
almost
the
has 200,000 miles on it.
look, Joey, we're going to pull a GameStop on the Festiva. We're going to drive these prices up, and we're going to make a mint.
I mean,
So the 89 Ford Festiva at one point, I think 1.4 liter. They were Mazda designed them. The ones came to America were built by Kia.
It was the Mazda 123, wasn't it?
121.
121.
Yeah, 121. But the funny, Mazda in Japan, where they sold them, they marketed it was in Japan. It was the Ford Festiva. They did not put their name on it in their home market.
that tells you a lot.
This was the car I drove to high school, and this was at the time it was, you had a car, you drove everyone you knew. 5-speed stick with a shifter that was 10 feet long. It was
Do you remember the tire
gutless.
size? Do you remember the wheel and tire size?
Oh, that's got to be like a 115.
115. I think it's a 105, like
No,
a
no,
105.
no, not
It's a 135 12.
Yeah, or 145 12.
I don't.
The alloy.
Yeah,
wheel.
like I thought it was like a 105 80 12.
What
No,
was the optional? What was the optional tire size?
That would be
Timmy?
like,
Exactly,
flexible.
because I don't think there were 135s on my car.
no, I think it
but-
had like a 145 12, and then if you got the alloy wheels, you got a 155 13.
Now it's most
love.
famous for, remember the Shogun?
Oh,
Yeah.
But I mean, otherwise, like no one was thinking about Festivas. I was the only one in my high school who had one.
I had a friend with one. I had a friend with two friends with Festivas.
Yeah, there were a
But-
couple Festivas in my high school too.
When I went on date night, if I had a big thing to do, my mother had a Jetta, what did I do there? Had an 85 Jetta, and it was this.
I think Zoom decided your presentation was too long.
Your
Am I
TEDx,
gone?
your TEDx, you timed out.
I told you that does not do TED Talks. So that was my mother had one of these in white. It looked just like that, but it was white. And that was the car when I had something special to do. I took that. And these are also 10 grand. Like it makes no sense.
You never find another one. They're all gone. They're all gone.
The diesels have survived.
Oh yeah.
The gas ones, like this is the only gas one I could find in the country, but there are diesels around.
Can you make that bigger, Jonathan? Can you make those photos bigger? No,
That's
not
as big as
really.
they get.
I think those are the wheels I have on my 3 Series. Those are the Ronal LS.
Yeah, the BBS. Yeah. They didn't. I don't know if they came on this. This is the second gen Jetta. I think they might have introduced them with the
No, it's an
Golf, like the
aftermarket
third gen.
wheel. But they did offer a BBS RA. I think RA2
Right.
or RA with that car.
They're one of the great. One of
The
the,
PBS model.
Yeah, I have those wheels. I have that wheel on my BMW. It's
may
the
in fact
Ronal,
be
it's the
the same
Ronal LS.
And there's a blue interior, just like Casey likes. I know he loves his blue interiors.
well, it's not a
That's
consistent.
flirting
blue.
with green.
This one's in really good shape.
It is. I mean, yeah. I still don't know if it's 10 grand good shape, but it's
Yeah,
really good
that's
shape.
cool.
One of my favorite car and driver stories of all time is when they took a diesel Jetta and they drove it across the country nonstop. 2 guys did it, and they sealed the car, and they put an oversized fuel tank in it, and they put catheters in order to be able to urinate on the way across the country.
They redid it too. They redid the story like 20 some years ago, just over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that long. Phillips
Yeah,
did
Phil Berg did it
it. Well, and then Phillips did it.
with Berg.
Yeah,
Oh,
with
maybe
Berg.
It wasn't that long ago, Casey. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was probably like 2000. It was basically when it was probably like 2004, 2005, something like that.
And they went on a liquid diet for like a week to prepare themselves for it.
Yeah, and then they hit traffic, and they hit traffic in like Washington State or something, like just some horrible, like almost there, and they were creeping in traffic, like so they wouldn't come to a complete stop, and then eventually got to the point where they just had to come to a complete stop, and they were so pissed. But then they got to the West Coast and said, well, we might as well just do the return to get it done, and then they got it done. So they actually almost did there and back. But
And
anyway.
didn't you-
Jonathan, you said you would use that for special outings. Did you put the back seat down, or was the back seat big enough for you?
The back seat in that car didn't go down. I
Oh,
think
it didn't
you
fold?
had a pass through, a ski pass through.
But it
Did you go down? But my mother's.
old
So my
pass-through.
birds. What was that?
The old pass-through.
So my mother's sex ed talk to me about the Jetta was, I put a sheet in the car. Don't get the seats dirty. That was my birds. I had no idea what she was talking about. And I was like, okay.
Your mom is my kind of lady.
It's very progressive.
Yeah. So that's how I got here.
Awesome.
And that was in Torino?
That was in Sicily. Actually.
Yeah, okay.
All right, Casey, you're up to bat.
All right. I also have, we're going to go on a little bit of an automotive adventure in my history. And
This is gonna be a long episode.
it will be, but I'll try to be brief. But basically, my parents had what I consider
My guy.
$70,000.
Wait. Just
Don't get
mute
distracted.
everyone so I can get through this quickly. So my parents started. They got married. This was the first car they bought.
I'm buying that.
They went on their honeymoon. It was a V8. It was a manual. It was not an automatic. And they went on their honeymoon, drove all over the country, and somewhere in, I can't remember if it was in British Columbia or in Banff. They were camping, and my dad dropped a tire off of like a logging road, and it had an open diff, so one tire is just spinning, couldn't get out, and there was like a 2x4, like a log or something that they either had, but my dad's like, oh, I'll just wedge it in there, and my mom will give it gas, and it'll get it unstuck. And my dad, of course, gets it in there, and miscommunication. My mom, like basically floors it, and the 2x4 just shot right past my dad's head.
Oh my god.
And yeah, and it was like my dad was almost killed right after they got married. But anyway, so
You
this
almost
was-
didn't
this-
exist because of this car.
yeah, exactly. But in theirs was green. I never saw it. I only saw photos of it. And they loved.
Wait, why is
The
this
shifter.
one $69,541?
I mean, it is remarkably clean. There are not a lot of these remaining.
Well, because of the V8. Yeah.
The
Oh,
V8's
okay.
probably a rare. The V8, the 304. I had the 304 in a CJ. It was a complete dog shit engine.
I mean, I do want to say how great is the coincidence that I decide to buy a car and Casey shows up with an
with a
AMC.
$70,000 AMC.
I mean,
$70,000 AMC.
Anyway, but we're gonna moving swiftly along. They replaced it with a Volare wagon, also
Those
green,
recalled thing in history.
also Woodside. I remember this car. I remember this car being towed away, basically. It was a complete POS, but I do have memories of this car. Not many, but I do. They replaced it with, drum roll,
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh,
I think it was
the
an 83.
X11.
I don't think it was an 85. I think it was an 83. Probably because my dad read, like this, he read this or remembered this cover. It was like, oh, GM's blowing everybody into the weeds. Okay. So this car.
What year did he buy the Citation?
So I think the Citation, it was either an 83 or an 84.
Oh, okay. So near the end of the Citation's life.
Yes, near the end of the Citation's life. And I have lots of memories of this car, particularly the center vinyl section here, that in the summer would, so hot. And it was just horrible. And
Why did you need to sit there? Because the ashtray was right in front of you?
well, so speaking of the ashtray, so my mom in this time, she did smoke, and she would just be ripping darts in the front seat. And I
Windows
remember
up? Was she a windows up smoker?
she was not a windows up smoker, but I remember, something I said to my mom is what got her to quit smoking. But I remember this car just crapping out in the middle of an intersection, a busy like 4-lane intersection. But God, oh man. Anyway, and then my parents, it got a little better. I mean, I'm still surprised that I ended up with the car taste that I have.
Yeah, you and Joey, it's like a miracle.
And then there was like a Taurus wagon.
When did you start influencing their purchases? Or
Probably
did
about
you
here.
ever?
So 1990, March of 1990, my parents bought a 91 Explorer. They just launched them, and this is my car of everything. This is what it was, and I found this one. This example is
Manual.
But ours was a manual. Ours was an XLT manual. I remember
Did you have a little squirrel stuffed animal too that you put on the dashboard?
No.
Does it
And a
include the water
dashboard
bottle?
protector.
The empty water bottle?
But like when but my sister rode horses, so this thing was constantly filled with like horse crap, not horse dung, but like just crap for horses.
I think it's called tack, isn't it, Casey?
It is called tack, but I wasn't gonna raise the pinky on the audience there. Explorers, I think, like Pearly's Country Squire. I mean, this is a pretty important vehicle. We had a manual, like I said.
You had a manual? Wow.
Yeah, it was an XLT manual, and we actually, I remember driving to actually the Ford dealership in. This was the color we had. It was Oxford white. That one's a little rougher. But
it's got 267,700 miles on it.
So
$1,200 though.
Yeah, this thing's bottomed out. But I remember
Casey,
going.
Did you learn to drive a stick on this?
I did, and my mom always liked having manuals, and she still does. And this was.
What is that? What's up with the boot?
The boot. Well, I think there's something around the boot.
I think
looks
it's
like ear
Oh, those are those are like the springy ear things.
Ear warmer. Ear
Or
warmer.
is it a mask? Oh, it is an ear warmer.
Yeah, but I mean, like you talk about shifters that are like 5 feet long, long throws, super heavy clutch.
Did you heel toe it?
I never heel toed it. I did not learn how to heel toe on this.
But these were. It sounds like, Casey, you guys were fancy, because like in my neighborhood, like if you had the Explorer, especially in '94, you were, and horses, you were fancy.
We were fancy adjacent.
I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
Jason.
Well, no, I mean, this wasn't an Eddie Bauer. I mean, it was a cloth interior. But I remember going with my parents, and my parents haggling over the price, and I think they paid like $18,100 for it in 1990.
Which is probably close to like 40 grand in today's dollars, I would imagine.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I think this is the thing that always gets me about these Explorers is I don't even think Ford was prepared for how successful they'd be.
You're probably right about that.
They came out with this and we'll extend the Bronco to a little bit. We'll put a fourth door in and see what happens. And they were selling like 400,000 a year by a year into the run.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh yeah, this is a car that spawned SUV mania.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because I mean, shortly after, I mean, this wasn't ours. We had, like I said, we had a 91, which was the first model year.
Came out in 90.
They came out in 90. Hey, see, this is gonna be good. So they came out in 90, but they launched a model year ahead, very early in 90. So they came out in March of 1990. They went on sale in March of 1990. All is 91 model year.
Yeah, I lost a bet with you for a lot of money.
Yeah, I was way in the hole, and I think I had bumped.
We'd been doubling or nothing for like months.
Yeah, and I was way in the hole. I mean, I was just like, I'm not going to bet with Tony about cars anymore. His knowledge is way superior to mine. I am only going to be a student from now on.
And then I
came up, and I was like, no, double or nothing on this, and it cleared my ledger.
I got hammered. I learned my lesson.
Well, Toyota did the same thing when it launched the Tundra. The Tundra came out in May of '99, As a
He
2000.
always finds a way to bring up.
I was going to say, have we had an episode
Jeez.
where we don't
Thank you very
mention
much.
Tundra?
I was
Have
gonna-
we
I was
had
gonna-
one?
Never. We should never have an episode without a Tundra
I was
mention.
going to point out that there was a Tundra park next to one of the park next to the festival too, but I didn't bring that up because
And I thought you were going to say the RAV4, how Toyota did what Ford did with the Explorer, Toyota did with the RAV4, one class down, crossover.
well, it's
versus-
true. It's true in the RAV4.
But of course, you went Tundra.
And what's the best-selling vehicle in America right now?
Is it RAV4?
50.
It's not. I mean, not a pickup truck. It's
On
not a
truck is
Oh,
RAV4.
not a
It's
pick.
the RAV4. Other
It's a
than-
RAV4.
All right, you guys ready for? I don't have that long of a presentation, so we can keep this merciful.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it was a, but those Explorers too are cars.
Oh my God.
Buddy.
Oh,
So my dad immigrated to the States in '68
From where?
from Bolivia,
From Las Vegas.
and so this was like this is like his dream car, and so this was his car to himself that he bought for himself. I made it in America. And so he didn't have this. This is sort of the Tom Wolfe special. In all
And it was
white.
white on white?
No. He had all red. He had a red top, red interior.
That's where you
Read
get
that.
your red interior thing from?
Maybe.
Never occurred.
You
to
don't
him
like red
until
interior?
now.
You don't like red interiors?
Oh my God, no, come on.
But
Oh,
Red interior? It's
your-
like the
your dad-
inside
I
of
hate
the
it
cow.
too.
Your dad's a doctor, right?
Yeah. So he
Mhm.
so he bought this car. This is after the fuel crisis, mind you. This is after the early '70s fuel crisis. His had
Before the
fuel
late 70s
injection.
fuel crisis.
So this is a 500 cubic inch until the Viper beat it recently. Like when the Viper went to 8.4 liters, this was the biggest engine you could get in a car in modern times. It was an 8.2 liter, 500 cubic inches, 190 horsepower in the carbureted version. I think 210 or 215
Wow.
in the fuel injected version. It weighed 5,000 pounds, 224 inches long, just ridiculous. Front wheel drive too, because it was built on the
Very.
Coronado platform.
Yeah.
My dad
Awesome.
loved the flat floor up here because there was no drivetrain. I mean, it was all up front because it was front wheel drive.
Yeah.
It was cool. And he thought it was quick, but probably if I drove it now today, I'd probably laugh at it.
I mean, compared to what's in Bolivia, probably.
Well, I mean, compared to what was in the mid 70s too. I mean, it had
Right.
it had 365 pound-feet of torque, which made it sort of probably feel kind of quickish.
How much is this one?
This one is 19,000, and it
How many
has
miles was it?
under 50,000 miles, 48,000 miles. Looks
Wow.
pretty
What's-
original.
All right, Pearly, I'm just going to say this. Can you imagine pulling up to the Cincinnati Club in this? I'm just saying. They're leaving that out front.
That,
I mean,
you know,
Boss Hog. This one's the full Boss Hog, except Boss Hog's was earlier. Boss Hog had the round headlights.
we had a DeVille. Boss Hog actually had a DeVille.
No, he had an Eldorado.
No, he did not.
Yes,
He
he
had an
did.
Eldorado. He had an Eldorado.
Ooh. Big bet.
He had an Eldorado. In the,
My money's on
TV
Tony.
series- the TV
I'm
series
taking
he had-
Tony.
In the TV series, he had a DeVille. In the movie, he had an Eldorado.
No, he had an Eldorado in the TV series.
You are wrong. How much you
No,
want to
you're
bet?
wrong.
You want to bet? How much you want to bet?
So this one has
Casey,
fuel
can you sort this
injectors.
out?
I'm on it.
Thank you.
Did we lose audio?
No, it's just no one has anything to say.
That's the movie car. The one that's the movie
Wait,
car.
it
With
says
Burt Reynolds.
Cadillac DeVille. That says Cadillac DeVille.
No, that's not.
Don't skip the DeVille. Don't skip the DeVilles. This one, we're gonna call this one for Pearly.
Anyway, back to this.
My guy.
Wait a second.
You can't just move on from that.
So
Tony, I just want you to say a few words here. Just say, Pearly, you were right.
This is all gonna be
Pearly,
edited
you
out.
were right.
Wait,
It's all gonna be edited out.
I see DeVille in the movie.
No.
That's what.
Eldorado in the movie, the set of which I was on, and
Oh my
it
God.
was
Christ.
the bill in the series. 70 to
So what do you think of this price, Tony? What do you think of 19 grand for this?
You know, I looked at a lot of these. These have made a bit of a jump. The really low mileage stuff is all 30 to 40. The really high mileage stuff is under 15, like under 10. So for a real 50,000 mile one, the price is pretty good. It's got the parade boot, which is this piece. So you can, so every prom queen and prom king can sit back there as you drive.
Is that rigid?
around. It's body on frame. It's not
Wait,
really
is
rigid.
that parade boot rigid? Can you?
Oh
like,
yeah, it's hard. It's fiberglass. These had the great
I wonder if it fits in the trunk.
on the fenders and on the tail back here. There's fiber optics that connected to the brake lights, so you knew if your brake lights were working. They would like light up. And when we were little, we thought they looked like Jawas because they were two little red eyes.
Yeah, wait, was that about the brake lights? I thought because my grandmother Seville had those, and I never knew what they were for.
Yeah, they were.
just,
It's the brake light indicator, and then on the fenders they had high beams and they had turn signals.
Well,
That would
also,
also light up.
you know, there's a lot of low mileage convertibles, I think, from 76 because it was supposed to be the last convertible.
Right. It was supposed to be the last year of the convertible, which is so Car and Driver did this story in 76 when we all thought the convertible was going to die. And it was supposed to be the last American convertible. So Cadillac was like, oh, this is the last American convertible. And they sold like 14,000 of them. And everyone thought that they had a collector's item, including my father.
Wait, like the last convertible of like the last body style?
no, the last American
Yeah.
convertible.
Yeah. They thought the regulations would stop, like rollover
Safety
regulations would
regulations?
stop the convertible.
But that's the same reason Porsche came out with the Targa, because they thought the regulations were going to limit 911 convertibles.
But that just never happened?
No.
No.
Clearly.
Well, what happened was it went away, and then what happened was that Chrysler brought back the convertible with the LeBaron.
And Mustang. Mustang was early.
Well, I think the LeBaron actually beat the Mustang out by a few months. If you want to check that out, we can. And you'll find, and then Ford did the Mustang, and then Cadillac did an Eldorado convertible again. Did another
Yeah, but
Eldorado.
those were all aftermarket. This was built in the factory. Those Eldorado convertibles were all aftermarket.
And well, what is aftermarket? They were usually ASC conversions.
Oh my God, here
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah, that
I
is
want to talk
100% aftermarket.
I want to talk about the sentence that is leave its mark on history as one of the finest convertibles ever built. Wow.
Factual.
My dad kept it until 1989, so I remember this car fondly. And it had this smell of like Cadillacs that I still like. You would still smell in Cadillacs up until like 15, 16, 20, 20 to 15 years
Yeah.
ago. Cadillacs still smelled like that.
It's
This
a
is
smell you
like-
would take
this
with
is
you into the
precisely the
grocery
sort
store
of-
when you got out of one.
What's that, Jonathan?
It's a smell you would take with you into the grocery store when you got out of one.
Exactly. You smelled like Cadillac and cigarettes.
That's
Wait,
exactly-
this is
and
precisely
the metal ashtrays, which are great.
This is wait, go back to that. This is precisely the sort of sweeping substance that people are going to ooh and ah over for generations to come.
And look at us.
Daddy is a key.
Look at us.
That is accurate.
Self-fulfilling
Accurate.
prophecy.
They are.
Yeah, and he had an 8-track, and some of the 8-tracks he had were the music from The Godfather, which he liked to throw in there.
Carmine
Which
Coppola.
I think that had
Carmine Coppola.
Horse with No Name. I remember listening to Horse with No Name repeatedly while driving around in this car.
Your dad went full America, and I love it. Full America. He's like, what else you got back there? You got flags? You got-
But so the fuel bills started to upset him. So in 79, he bought a Rabbit, but he kept this car and would drive this car occasionally. So he would drive the Rabbit as like a fuel economy car to go to.
And did he have a bumper sticker? My other car is a convertible Eldorado.
Was it his Rabbit wasn't a convertible though, right?
What's that?
His Rabbit was not.
The
no.
Rabbit was just a regular
Not
Rabbit.
to the second gen.
Yeah, it was a first gen 79 Rabbit. Yeah.
Wow.
The convertible Rabbit came out, I think, in 80 or 81, Pearly.
80.
I think
Came
that
out in 80. Want to bet?
doesn't that beat your K car?
We're talking American cars, sir.
I know. And that had a basket handle anyway. I'm just giving you a hard time. All right, so now
Wow.
we've come to the part of the show where we judge each other's picks.
I mean, we-
Now we're determining which car Jonathan's going to buy.
no, Jonathan's
That's-
determined on his own, right? Or are we voting?
Nope. He is beholden to our choice.
Jonathan,
Hey.
I'll send you the listing for the Country Squire right now, Jonathan.
All right, Jonathan.
Okay,
Pearly,
look,
go
I'm
ahead
not buying a $20,000 Country Squire. That's not happening.
But he will buy a $70,000 Gremlin.
Yeah.
No, wait, I didn't say that.
All right, Pearly, I got to give you a hearty thumbs up for the Country Squad.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
The classic family car.
If you swap those wheels out, you'd have a really beautiful thing.
Steel wheels with dogfish hubcaps are coming for that car. Would not be anything fancy.
All right, what are you picking, Pearly? What's your favorite?
This is a tough one because the thing that was interesting about this month is the fact that we got to see everybody's history, not the fact that you actually want the cars. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know anybody's automotive history.
So you're voting for the Festiva? Is that what you're saying?
The Festiva's not even in the running.
I
What are you talking about?
I would vote for the cab over KW if Jonathan had the guts to go for one of those.
I'd be happy to buy one of those. I would be happy to buy a cab.
What does one of those cost?
Oh, you can get them for dirt cheap. You can get them for, I mean, it depends how much work you want to do.
Okay. Next week we're doing Class 8s next week.
Yeah, all Class 8s.
Please.
All Class 8s.
Okay.
The thing is that it's going to sound weird, but the one I would want is the Tercel.
Why?
I'll take it. I don't even want it.
Why, Pearly?
Because the Tercel is like one of these vehicles that reminds me of when I was young and when I was in college. I'm older. I'm so much older than Joey or you. And Jonathan and I are both the old guys here. And I just think that it's got some fundamental virtues that are missing from today's cars. It's so simple that you just can't get away from the fact that it's primal. And
That's not the adjective I would have expected.
I mean,
primal. That's
you can leave it. You can leave it.
The only other one that's tempting to me is the Eldorado, and that's because of an old Rockford Files episode called White on White and Nearly Perfect, starring Tom Selleck, where he played Lance White.
Wow.
Detective.
How do you know the title of a Rockford Files episode?
How do you not know the title of Rockford Files episode?
Is that better or worse than Tony knowing the model of the BBS wheel on the?
No, way worse. Way worse.
Pearly, I've seen that episode and it's awesome.
It's one of the very best. It's hilarious. It's one of the very best episodes of any TV show ever made.
All right, that's running at the end of this episode.
And it's what Lance White drives. And Lance White, everybody doesn't know it, but that's the episode that made Tom Selleck's career.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Selleck plays Lance White, who's a competing detective with Rockford.
Yeah, and it's a great story.
And everybody loves him, and everybody hates Rockford. It's really
right. He gets away with everything. He's like, something will show up, and then it shows up.
All right.
So
who's next?
Okay,
Joey, you're
Pepperoni.
up next.
Tercel.
Your car's expensive though, but I love it.
Yeah, the price is a little whack. Thank you, everyone. I was not expecting such unanimous.
Oh,
praise.
and Joey,
I know, I mean-
congratulations. You won last week. We should say that publicly.
Oh yeah, let's
the-
revise that history.
Yes.
I did win.
The Casey claim.
I don't know about that.
Really.
You're gonna have to file an official appeal. Courts are backed up.
Joey, what was your favorite?
I think I'll go with that Jetta. I thought that was pretty nice.
Oh, yes.
wow.
Yeah.
I just love that design is pretty classic.
It was
And
a great
that one
car.
was in really good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked really nice. All right, Jonathan, are you presenting the Jetta? Because that was the family car, right?
No, I'm actually presenting. Well,
The Jetta's not eligible. Jetta's not eligible, Joey.
No, the Jetta is eligible. The Jetta.
I thought the Jetta was the final car that he.
yeah, the
sat
Jetta was a
on.
family car.
Yeah.
The
So that's the car. So I thought Jonathan was presenting the
Festiva.
Jetta.
No, that was just my first car.
Just go on.
Oh yeah, the Volkswagen Jetta.
Okay.
It's like everybody likes that now, so I'm gonna go with that.
What the heck?
All right, Jonathan, what was your?
Oh come on!
Do you want to go? Do you what? What's your favorite?
You give me a green AMC 5-liter Gremlin.
No, that's not
What
it.
else am
That's
I
not
gonna
it. That was two and a
That's
half.
a
That was three.
$60,000. That's not.
We're not judging prices. We're judging.
That was
the
just
cars.
for some background.
That was just my. That was just my. I was just telling you.
Oh,
I always
so what-
call what my
Casey's
parents
car is
owned.
the Explorer.
Yeah, my car's the Explorer.
Oh.
I always call what my parents owned before basically
gotcha.
I had any kind of
Okay.
influence as the automotive trifecta of crap.
In that case, I got to go with the Eldorado. I mean, and Boss Hogg had it, and it is like it's just so.
Boss
cool.
Hogg had it in the movie, not the real Boss Hogg.
Wherever he had it somewhere, but it also it's so cool, and like it is so of a time. Like when you see that car, that is it couldn't be anywhere else. A Tercel could be 30 years. A Jetta could be anytime. A 24-foot, whatever that was, Eldorado.
18 and a half feet. 18 and a half feet.
Yeah, 18 and a half feet. It was like, oh, yeah.
I thought about getting one, but I measured my garage. My garage is only 217 inches, so it won't fit.
Wow.
And you wouldn't extend the garage?
No. Not that much.
You could get one of those canopies.
No.
Just burrow into the hill deeper. Just do it. Do like a cutout. Do a cutout just for its length.
I don't think the house would stand. All right, KC, Ford Explorer for $1,200 with a manual. I'll give you a thumbs up.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, here we go. Oh, I thought he was pulled out.
I'm holding my thumb.
What's up, Pearly? What do you think?
I think it's mediocre. I just, I just think there's so many more examples of that are more. I just didn't like the example. I think the vehicle is very interesting in a lot of ways, but
Those early Explorers do not exist.
Yeah, and I love
They all disappeared.
This is a guy who had a Dodge Raider from an X-Files set who was gonna say,
I wish we didn't have to remember that.
who's
Yeah,
gonna
Casey,
say,
just say it's a project. Just tell them it's a project car.
You know what happened? All those things. A lot of this is true. There's a lot of those Explorers got exported to Central and South America. They just as soon as they got to the price point, they got exported.
But I mean, even the ones that are here are miserable. So many of them.
Okay, you're gonna have to give me a source for that because that sounds just like complete. That sounds like something Ford marketing would say because our Explorer we had that until probably 2005.
Yeah, a friend of mine's family had an original Explorer like that, and they were casting cars for the movie 8 Mile in Detroit, and so his car's in 8 Mile.
Yeah. So anyway, but I mean, I think my mom ended up putting about 260,000 miles on it, but by the time it was done, it was pretty rusty.
Yeah.
And I mean, like it was rusty, and yeah. So anyway, so that's fine. You can take your Country Squire. You can take your, whatever else is in Santa Barbara,
Casey, what's your favorite car?
Oh, it's Boss Hogg's Eldo.
Yes.
It's not Boss Hogg's Eldo.
100%. And first of all, Burt Reynolds is my Boss Hogg. Okay, I'm sorry. Burt Reynolds was an awesome Boss Hogg.
No, he was not.
And that movie is hugely underrated.
Just the movie really disappointed me. So
Okay, that's great.
Okay, I don't know if anybody cares, but what the hell?
So Tony,
Eldorado convertible 76 last
winner chicken.
Oh, my dad! I forgot to mention my dad had a bicentennial Michigan plate on it too, which was like the American flag.
I told you, full America.
Full on.
He went Tropic Thunder, but America instead of.
And my favorite, let's see. Oh, I got to go with the Jetta, Ramsey. I'm going with the Jetta.
Oh man!
How can no one vote for the Country Squire?
I don't want to drive it. It doesn't look like it's fun to drive.
You were being mean.
Did you two rehearse this before the show as well?
No.
Is that what? Okay.
Being
Hey,
mean.
so Jonathan, you got 2 votes. I got 2 votes.
No, you got 3. Because
I
voted
3?
for you. Wait.
I voted for it. No, I didn't. I voted for it.
You voted for the Tercel.
Yeah,
I voted for the
it's a
Tercel.
tie.
The Tercel.
We
I
actually
think-
have a tie this week.
I think the winner wins by mass, right?
I'm debating between the Citation, a Gremlin, or an Eldorado.
Well,
Those are.
You won't be able to find a Citation either.
Yeah, there
Not
won't
one
be
worth
any.
taking home.
No.
I mean, I know they're hard to find, but like someone has, like, there's that guy who's got in his garage his X11. I mean, he wants 12 grand for it, but
There's a Facebook group I happen to belong to
exactly.
for front drive GM stuff.
I
Wait,
want to
so wait,
see the list of all the Facebook groups that Pearly is a member of. Just have it scroll down the screen really fast right now.
Let's say maybe that's where his internet ads come from, the Facebook groups.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you watch this long, it's got to be some kind of record.
How long does this one go? How many? Where are we at?
I don't know. It's
Oh, wait, I do want to say
All
one
right.
last thing. I want to say one last thing.
Yeah.
The cars we showed today, like there was all this crazy weather. And one of the things that got me also with this search and looking for the cars that we found, like Joyce Tercel, like in Kentucky, I'm driving down the road and there are people in their all-wheel drive crossovers and cars, like with their flashers on in the snow, like they can't drive. And I'm like, we drove boxes back and forth in worse weather than this at 16 years old. Like we knew nothing. Driving
with no stability control, with no traction control, with
nothing.
No
I mean,
ABS.
You know, this is the old man. We had it so much tougher than you
That's
kids
right.
today.
Hey, get off of my yard. That's right. I just wanted to say that.
All right.
I mean,
well,
you
the
know, a lot
episode-
more
the
people
episode just
die
keeps
in
getting
car
longer.
crashes.
You know, I wanted to teach my kids how to drive a manual. And they said, "No, I don't care."
All right. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. You can't pass down car enthusiasm. It's just
No,
random.
and I didn't. I mean, my parents didn't care about cars at all.
Right.
And you know,
Neither did Joey's. Okay, we got to end this, bro. Just
no,
stop
why?
talking.
Why do we have to end this? Why can't we just go on
I know,
forever?
because we all have
Please end
lives. We all have lives to get back to.
Pearly.
Well, speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
All right. Well, if you enjoyed this and you made it this far, we'd appreciate it if you gave us a like and maybe a subscribe to the channel. And keep watching, and we'll see you next week.
If you love convertibles, this is a very special convertible. It is the only convertible made in America today, and it will be our last. It is the 1976 Cadillac Eldorado convertible, and only 14,000 of these collector's items will be produced this year. You should see your Cadillac dealer without delay, so you can enjoy one now, and so you can put one away to enjoy later, much later. Sorry, only two to a customer.
Don't believe everything you hear about the revolutionary new Volkswagen Jetta. The rumors about its roominess,
Want a lift?
the exaggerations about its German road car handling, and its trunk space. The one about the Volkswagen Jetta costing $79.94, it's $79.95. We hope this brings all those wild exaggerations to an end. Jetta, it's not a car, it's a Volkswagen.